Richan, let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Richan. I happen to be married to the lady over here who is very much involved with this church and particularly its thrift shop. I will be sharing this program with Joan Broadfield. We are members of the Environmental and Climate Justice Committee of the Chester branch of NAACP. And we will be talking a lot about things in Chester. But we'll also be very clear that we're also talking about the world we live in. Any one of us lives in. And the things that are happening in that world. I can remember when we used to say that there's going to be global warming, there's going to be climate change. It's happening, folks, right now. December? Rain in December? Where's the snow? So that's that end. And then there are record temperatures in the summer. This is happening right now. If any of you have young children or grandchildren, we're looking at what kind of a world they are going to be inheriting. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Joan, and she will lead us through the PowerPoint.
Found the arrow. Hi, Joan Broadfield. Will and I both live in Chester as well, and we love our Swarthmore neighbors. I hang out at Hobbs a lot. So we're acting on eco-justice in Chester. Chester has a long history of environmental racism, and there have been stories over the past 30 years. Occasionally in the paper you'll see. Protests have been ongoing since the early 90s that I know of, and I've been aware of them, but not widely joined. You know, those are those activists out there, the prophetic voices that we don't necessarily want to, you know, get too worried about. So we keep our distance. And I also, you know, worked every day. It was hard to do all. I was working on anti-racism. I was working on world peace. I'm a Quaker. You know, it's that sort of thing. So I had no idea really how to fit into the Chester area since I was working in Philadelphia. My husband was very involved in Chester. I knew more about Philly. However, I did know Zulie Mayfield and had her to the meeting, and we heard a lot about what she did. But then we didn't hear a whole lot after a while. So during the pandemic, more of us started paying attention. Covanta is the, oh, that's interesting. That didn't change. It just, you're not seeing the slideshow.
Click with the mouse.
Thank you. I was on the, I was on the arrow on the computer, which changed, but then it didn't change on the screen, so whoops. So there was a committee that formed in the 90s by Covanta, which is the current name of the, what do I push?
Should be set up so you can click the mouse now.
Where do I click it?
Should be just that.
Okay. So I don't think I can do it, but anyway.
I'll stay here.
Okay, I appreciate that. So Covanta in Chester has been an environmental disaster since it began in the early 90s. It started as a Westinghouse institution. The city was looking forward to this, quote, trash to steam plant. They had a much smaller one in mind. The county demanded that they have the bigger one. And that was never liked by the city of Chester. So protests have been ongoing, not widely joined in part due to the committee formed with committee members and Covanta, which is supposed to be the one that would give Covanta good feedback, and Covanta would listen. That didn't happen. So during the pandemic, more people began to pay attention to the work of Chester residents concerned for quality living, which is the group that Zulene is part of and is actually the strong head of. It had been working for a long time with Mike Ewald, who is a person who has a lot of good information, and students from Swarthmore and now Widener, to continue monitoring the problems and considering actions. So I began learning more because it was on Zoom. Yay, Zoom. It was great. Thank you. So this is Covanta. Notice how close it is to the river. We have a river that goes through Chester. The people in Chester would love to be able to think that we could use the river for more than industry. But unfortunately, right now, it's almost all industry. So that'll come in later. This is the neighborhood right next to Covanta. They're the ones that get to hear, smell, see the stuff that goes on at Covanta.
We breathe the stuff that goes on there.
Yeah. So Covanta can get less from us if our towns send trash there. Stop sending trash there. Typo, sorry. Covanta can get less from us, all of our towns, if all of our towns, when we recycle. That's a terrible sentence. Who wrote that? As Delaware County began the state-mandated work on zero waste, how many people have heard about the county work on zero waste? There is a sustainability commission, and I was asked to join from the NAACP, and they accepted me to join, and I did, and I learned a bunch. What became very clear was the need to get serious about reducing what goes into the trash. Now, this isn't just Chester, this is everywhere. I don't know how many people think trash recycling doesn't work. How many times have you heard that? A lot. Well, it doesn't work because we're not paying attention to what we're supposed to recycle. And unfortunately, sometimes the boroughs, Swarthmore does a really good job, but some places don't. Chester is one of them. What gets thrown out gets buried in landfills after being burned or processed in some way. And landfills are carefully maintained for safety, but they are filling up. And some landfills are not carefully maintained. The county has a landfill out in sort of Berks County up north somewhere, and it claims to be well maintained, but it is filling up, and the county then needs to have other landfills it sends things to. And Covanta is one of the entities that sends landfill stuff there. So recycling does work when we know how, and helping everyone know what is recycled in their town can be a challenge. Thank you. So these little triangles, they mean something. Some towns, like Chester says, if it has a triangle, put it in recycling. We have what's called single stream. So they take everything, and then I hope that they do the right thing when they get it. But we don't take styrofoam, and there are things we don't take. So this is on the website. You can get this PowerPoint later, and the website is on the PowerPoint. State mandates recycling, but not what to recycle. That's given to the local areas to do that. Towns contract with collectors, who then are the ones that actually do the collecting, and you have to make sure they're collecting correctly. During the pandemic, sometimes people were worried that recycling was getting put in the trash because they were, but that also is because people had their recycling out on trash day. You had a question?
Joan, I know one of the concerns about recycling for municipalities is how to afford it. Is it self-sustaining? The cost of it self-sustaining?
I don't know that it's any less or more expensive than trash collection, and it does produce some income for the town. I don't know whether it's self-sustaining, but we need to get rid of our trash, and we need to be paying for that too.
So right? Actually, it's a value added because
yes.
you get money back.
Right. Well, and the value added because of what happens to the stuff that's recycled that goes back into the marketplace in different ways, and I have an example of that. So I will say things get recycled into a bunch of different things, and if you can change the, I wish I knew how this worked. Thank you. Trash and recycle, oh dear.
That's the prior
That's
slide.
the same.
Yeah, that's the,
Yeah.
that's the same one. I thought I'd taken that out, I apologize. The Delaware County Sustainability Commission is charged with providing reviews and recommendations to the Delaware County Council and pertinent county departments regarding the preservation and protection of the natural and cultural environment of Delaware County. That is huge. And we all should be very excited about this because the county's actually doing something and they hear reports regularly. And you know you can go to a county council meeting, right? You do know that, right? They're on the website. This is the symbol. Refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. This is the zero waste emblem.
Is that
Like
first
that.
one refuse or reuse?
It's refuse.
Refuse.
No, it's
Like trash.
No, it's refuse.
Don't
Don't take it in the first.
So now,
Oh, thank you. That's useful
what
to know.
that's what I
So,
thought.
okay, hold on.
Reuse.
No, it's,
Yeah, reuse is the second one.
yeah.
So I'm just noticing something on bags. This was actually a piece of trash in my yard that I picked up and I went, oh, interesting. It has a plastic bag, no, you can't recycle. So more and more places have that, this little symbol here. I've actually tried to find it to put it in but I couldn't find it. It's a recycle bag with a line through it.
Huh.
Now, I will say, not all plastic bags are even talking about whether it's recyclable or not. But here's a suggestion. Watch it, look at it, and don't buy it if it has that symbol. That may be hard if it's a bag of potato chips you really want, but think about it. Maybe there's another one that does. So buy containers that can be recycled, learn about composting, but if something says it's compostable, don't think you can put it in your backyard. This is something I learned. There is something called
Industrial compost?
oh yeah, I'm so glad you're there. Industrial compost, and that's the place where some of those things can be composted, not your backyard. Thank you. So now we get to the latest thing. So far what NAACP has been doing has been studying LNG. And we took our thoughts to the county council. I made a statement to them about how we really hope the county would back us when we protest any kind of LNG coming to Chester. LNG is liquefied natural gas. There are rumors or facts, depending on who you talk to, that there are plans to put an LNG on our waterfront.
Why is it bad?
It is bad because it can explode in the form of when you have, so the idea is, see this ship? That's the way they transfer it to Europe, where it gets made into plastic stuff. It is not used actually for energy much. There's a little bit that's used for energy. Mostly it's used for plastics. So there is already LNG coming down from Will's going to take it from here. But there you will see what we've done already is we've been part of the hearing where the city's been absolutely clear we do not want this plant. Again, where would we put it? It's just like...
Yeah. LNG, liquefied natural gas. And how do you liquefy a gas?
reduce the
You
temperature.
put it down at 260 degrees below zero. And there it's going through those pipes and on its way to ships like that to take all over the place. Wonderful. If there is a rupture anywhere in that line, as Joan says, you suddenly have a huge incendiary cloud. So it's obvious that Chester does not want that kind of operation in our midst. So there are, as she mentioned, there is an effort to a proposal to put a terminal for LNG on the Chester waterfront. Now, the company that wants to do that is Penn Energy. Oh, well, I wonder where in Pennsylvania they are. Their home base is in New York City. So they're borrowing the name. Now, you want to do something about climate and about that LNG problem? There is a group that's been working on that and has been proposing how we should go about doing that to the Pennsylvania State General Assembly and the governor. So when you want to do something about preventing that horrendous problem, contact your state representative and your state senator. Now, the best way to do that is to go to their website, and they have a whole business of you identify yourself, and then you send them that message: no LNG terminal in Chester, Pennsylvania. And those are the ones they read. They get, anybody here get a lot of junk in their email? I do. So do they. Those are the ones that they do read and pay attention to. So there's something very specific. Now there are things we do in our daily life. Joan mentioned about plastic and recycle. And generally, the kind of plastic bags you find, groceries in and so forth. My newspapers come in plastic. Well, let's see now. In order to do that, I will run to the news dealer and buy my papers. Oh, I'm getting into my car and running the car, and I'm helping to create pollution. So, I'm going to ask, does anybody here, when you go to the supermarket, take your own bags with you? Wonderful. You are making a difference. You're not taking that plastic bag and those plastic bags. So there are things we can do right here to make a huge difference. I wonder, Joan, you had some more you want to...
Also, I thought you would mention the LNG plant in Texas that blew up.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
know that if there is some plant in Chester, Swarthmore will also be the beneficiary of whatever happens in Chester with that.
And that was just last July.
And that was last July, I think of July a year ago, maybe.
Not hypothetical.
No. So the thing that I found as I've been living with, working with this group in Chester, is the more I learn, the more I realize I need to be in touch with my legislators. I need to be aware of what's going on in my backyard. It was a little disturbing when the hearing in April, I learned that it was a state rep from northeast Philly that apparently thought Chester was just the place for the LNG plant. Thankfully, there's another state rep in Philly who is already opposing the idea. But it was also frustrating to hear that the last governor had, without even apparently asking local people about it, decided that, yes, Pennsylvania should have an LNG plant. And he signed on to some legislation. He said yes to allowing the looking at LNG as a possible resource for our state.
How does it get shipped now? Because I know there are pipelines carrying it somewhere.
Oh, the pipelines are there,
Yeah.
and there is, that's a good question. It's probably by ship, but it's not one of these big LNG ships. And I'm guessing Marcus Hook may have something to do with it, but I'm not sure about
That's
even
what I was
that.
thinking, that it was already in Marcus Hook.
Right,
Why build another
the
one?
pipes are, and the pipes also be going to other places. And those are like little details that I don't know a whole lot about. I just know that I've never been crazy about the whole idea of
Well, I
gas to
remember it
begin
was
with.
going through it when they were laying one of them, it was going past the school in an apartment building or
Yes.
something, and it was like pretty crazy.
Well, there was the whole, the pipeline that came down from northern Pennsylvania,
Keystone.
tore up a whole,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so we all remember the protests around that. Did a little bit in terms of doubling back on the safety thing, but not much more than that. And it means that we just really need to be ready to act when we see something like that happening, and urging our legislators to make sure they're checking with the communities that are being affected. So, are there any questions beyond that? I think there's one more. Yeah. So this page and the information on the previous page are ready in a handout that I've emailed to Jean, and we'll make sure you get that in some form. Energy Justice Network is the place where Mike Ewald, it's basically him, and he has a lot of information on his website. So there's a lot of information about, mostly about the Covanta stuff, but also a little bit about the LNG. Physicians for Social Responsibility in Pennsylvania, they have an office in Philly, and they have gotten really active around the whole issue of the environment. I was actually really surprised. I now get emails from them because I donated a little bit of money, and I'm really liking what I'm getting from them. They're really concerned because of health, right? Yeah, that's another thing that I learned when I went to the county, is the county is very aware of the environmental racism that has been in Chester, and has been very supportive of not adding any more. So I'm hoping that that will mean something. The Delaware County Sustainability Commission that's online, they have a really interesting PowerPoint and some things that they do. They have an annual meeting. It's been in Widener the past 2 years. Fascinating stuff. You learn stuff about some new things that are going on in the green world. And Chester residents concerned for quality living is our Zuling Mayfield's Zoom meeting on Thursdays, every other Thursday, and I always forget which one, so you go to the website and you register, and that's a very active group that is a little punchy. You have to sort of sit with it. It's just a community group that's very, Zuling's working on her language, and we're all grateful. Yes.
Yeah, Chester residents concerned for quality of living is one very active group on these problems. You do not have to be a Chester resident to be involved in that group. A mutual friend of ours who lives in a place called Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, is one of the activists in that outfit.
They also use Swarthmore students and Widener students whose professors are very interested in this environmental work. So also we say recycle those clean plastic film bags at stores, and I admit I pushed the envelope a little bit. Supposedly it's the bags you get at the groceries, but there are certain other bags that I make sure are clean and I put in that, and hopefully they don't ruin the whole bin. But I also am trying really hard not to buy the things that aren't recyclable.
That's the refused part.
What?
That's the refused part.
That's the refused part, yes. And I'm realizing, like, I bought this bag of apples at Giant because they were the kind of apples I like, and I brought it home and I realized there's nothing on there that says I can recycle this bag. So what's wrong with just buying apples off the shelf? So I have to rethink things myself a little bit. I think that maybe, unless there's any questions. Jean?
I don't have a question, but I have a thought that I would like to offer us, and that is, the thought is our church years ago was very active in the civil rights movement, and we have a rich history. I was not here at the time, but today I am talking to young people about what is a civil rights issue that they should take up today. And what I'm saying to my students in Chester is this whole idea about our planet and environmental issues. And while this church is very active in sending children on pilgrimages, we also help them feed the poor, etc. One of the thoughts that I had was, in which ways can we have our young people partner maybe with the children at the Chester East Side Ministries who are doing a program to try to reach out to legislators and to somehow get involved, educate their parents to say, you guys can do maybe what we can't do. I do a voters drive every year, and we do infomercials where the little people tell their parents, says, I can't vote, you need to vote for me. And we run that periodically. And so what I'm wondering is, can the Swarthmore Trinity students here get involved with other students to see whether or not they could become John Lewis's, you know, start some good trouble, and do school projects about it, create a portfolio so that by the time they become 12th graders, they will have some of these rich student-led activities in their portfolio when they get ready to go to college or whatever. They can look back and see some of the great work that they have done. So what I'm suggesting is, can we at Trinity, in one way of reaching out is partner like that with some young people. And then for those of us here who have trouble going online and sending emails to our Congress people, maybe we can have a day downstairs where the young people can come in with their computers and say, Jean Arnold, this is the way you write your congressman now without pen and paper.
I love that. I want you in my meeting. Anyway, thank you so much. That, yeah, the more we remember it is the world we are leaving our children, it might help us think a little more about getting more involved. And there's always, of course, you know, the feeling that, well, LNG is just one thing, and, you know, I don't really, it's too big and I can't worry about it. But I found that, you know, just doing one little thing with others is a way of building strength in myself and helping me believe that we can make a difference, as we can listen to the prophetic voices and realize they actually mean something. So thanks for inviting us, and I have a feeling Will has something to add. He's pricking up.
I was going to mention, in terms of these organizations that are doing active work, you do not have to memorize these references. You go to the name and Google the name,
Yes.
and up comes their website. And they keep bringing in new information as a way of keeping up on what's the latest issue, what's the latest problem, and what's the latest efforts to do something about it.
So, and also, Jean, I want to say, you know, Chester East Side is now housed at the Episcopal Church in Chester, in case you didn't know that.
Yes. The Episcopal Church in Chester.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Since Ted is not here, and I really do not want to try to speak for him at all, I don't even attempt to fill those shoes. But if you look at our scripture that we started with today, it talked about God giving dominion to mankind, and mankind having the responsibility to maintain the planet. And if you're thinking about, this is my version as to why Jesus came the first time, I think we got it a little wrong. I think Jesus' coming helped us get it right. And now that he has gone, we are still getting it wrong. And I'm suspecting that when he comes the second time, we might get it right again. That's just my little theology about that.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I think part of the issue is we keep looking at Genesis 1, which talks about dominion. And there are two creation stories which are not the same.
Yes.
The second one says God created man to work the earth and care for it. And I think maybe we need to use that a little bit more.
Yes.
Good point.
I think Ted started out this morning talking about that other version which used that language for dominion. really being good stewards and caring for the earth. And so I'm saying that to say this. Sometimes we think of God work as being something extremely supernatural and what have you, but I'd like to say good work, you can take that one O out of good and it can become God work. And I'm suggesting that doing the right thing by our planet is not only God work, but it is also good work. So let us not underestimate our good work sometimes in thinking that it is not God's work.
Yeah, these can be God's hands, right?
Yes, we often say that these are the only hands that God has, is our hands. And so we need to be mindful of that, I think, more and more as we go about our good work. And I like the fact that Trinity offers platforms in our ministries where we can do lots of good work for the community, and I'm thankful for this particular one. So, are there any other questions, or yes, Will?
I want to mention that a number of Delaware County communities have adopted no trash, which means no trash to that incinerator in Covanta in Chester. Swarthmore is one of the municipalities.
We're checking that, actually. I know they asked for it, but Sue
They
Edwards is checking to make sure that
Yes,
actually
yes.
passed through.
No, they have done it.
Okay.
They passed that
Swarthmore
resolution.
College didn't, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Thank you.
all kinds of ways to
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. We don't want any hot mics, turn them off.
There you go. Thank you. So yeah, you'll get, if you are on email, you'll get an email. I think Jean plans
Yes,
to
you can
help
get that out to everybody.
making sure that there's also a paper version of the resource list for those who don't have email.
Could you just post this on the church website?
Yes, I'll ask Ted to do that.
Yeah, that would
Oh,
be.
let me send you the corrected one that doesn't have the extra slide.
Oh, wonderful.
Sorry, I totally.
That would be great, because then the links would be right there online.
Yes.
Yeah, or I can share that.
Oh,
A link to that in a weekly.
One of the, okay.
thanks so much. Yes. Thank you all for coming.
Thank
you. Thank you for hosting.
See you next week on a different topic.
Okay, Dr.